want to talk about the NFL draft, but I want to talk about it from the standpoint of recruiting, right? Because I believe most of the kids make their decisions about where they're going to go play their college football based on who is going to put them into the NFL draft and how soon they can put them into the NFL draft. So I'm on the Twitters and I'm trying to contribute to the platform, okay? I am trying to give you the sort of information that you have come to appreciate. And one of the things that the platform is good for. So I knew just from looking around and doing this research and this interview for Jalen Waddle that I did earlier this year that you could check out on CFB on Fox on the YouTube channel, that Waddle was different. And it's not just because he was actually wide receiver 1 at Alabama, got hurt, and then Devontae Smith wins a Heisman Trophy. It's because coming out of Bel Air Episcopal in the Houston area, he was the only player in the 2018 class among the top 15 recruits in the state of Texas to not sign with either Texas or Texas A&M. The only one. He went to Alabama. In the 2021 NFL draft, he is the only one of those players who was drafted, let alone in the first round. Okay, so the immediate rebuttal to this, if you're an ampersand U or UT fan, is, yo, most of those kids are still in school, which is the point, okay? As soon as you are eligible for a job, you go apply for that job, okay? Let's be very clear about this. None of us are going to college simply to better ourselves. We are going to college to qualify for the job we want. And as soon as we qualify for the job we want, we go get that job. Full stop. That is what Jalen Waddle was able to do after 3 years at Alabama and playing just 4 games in 2020, taking 79 days off, showing up as a decoy in the national championship game, and oh yeah, picks up a national championship ring for his trouble, right? But then when you take that a little bit further out, we can talk about Texas and its development. We can talk about A&M and its development. But I'm looking around at which states produce the most NFL draft picks of the 259 in this year's NFL draft, right? And at the top of the list is Florida at 37. Texas at 33 follows, right? Then you're getting into 21 in Georgia, 19 in California, 13 in Louisiana. Means about 47% of the NFL draft picks in 2021 come from 5 states. So in a football-loving country, those are the 5 best high school football states in America, and that checks out, right? Take a look at where some of these national championship rosters are built. But I also get that there are Texas fans in particular, and by Texas fans, I mean Texans, who take it personally that many of their kids end up at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, and they go into the accounting as Florida natives. All right, so I'm from Tulsa, okay? I went to high school to start at Booker T. Washington High. I transferred in the middle of my junior year to Memorial High. My diploma says Memorial Senior High School, which means that in the history book, I am a Charger before I am a Hornet. It is not where you start, it is where you finish. And if you want to be able to claim your kids from your area, give them a reason to stay, period. And it's not as if Texas does not have national powers. South Lake Carroll is in Texas. North Shore is in Texas. Allen is in Texas. Geyer is in Texas. Ryan is in Texas. Duncanville is in Texas. Katy is in Texas. You have nothing to really be upset about here. And my better question is, why isn't there an IMG type in Texas? I know y'all would love to have it. Go try to build it. Oh yeah, Prime Prep. Didn't work because it's just built a little bit differently. So you have players, and you should have players, which gets back to why is Texas always talked about as a national title contender? Because they get who they want. And we expect them to develop who they are. Think about this. Joseph Asai was a first-team All-American at Texas last year. I had that man slotted as a first-rounder. Didn't get in there. Means Texas continues its streak of not having a first-round draft pick, which is ridiculous because we know the kind of player they get. But for whatever reason, since Mac Brown, they have not been able to routinely turn out first-round draft picks. And then take into account which teams are putting in the most NFL draft picks. So we had 4 teams that had 9 or more players drafted off of their 2020 roster. 3 of those teams played in the college football playoff. One of them is national champion. Alabama, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Clemson we'll talk about here in just a second. The other one is Georgia. The same Georgia who had Justin Fields on the roster as a freshman and chose to ride with Jake Fromm, which is its own problem. But more to that, Georgia has not won a national championship in my lifetime. I'm 33. Means I would be damn near 40. I'd be turning 40 if Georgia won a national championship this year, and that would be how long it would have been since Georgia's won one, right? So all to say, Georgia has those same sorts of problems that Texas has, just a tier higher. You're getting the guys that you want, and you are putting out some of the best players routinely in football. I mentioned the 3rd best state in pushing out NFL draft picks is the state of Georgia. And it's not like Georgia Tech is out there just, ruining Georgia's day. No, that is everybody else. Clemson comes through there on the regular. Speaking of Clemson, there were a couple of teams that had more draft picks than Oklahoma and Clemson. That would shock you. Pitt had 6, Kentucky had 6, Penn State had 6. Now, Penn State is a little bit different for me because Penn State is a traditional power, but they were bad last year and they still had 6 dudes drafted. Okay? Now, the counter to that is Clemson and Oklahoma didn't have that many dudes declared for the draft. It's an on-again, off-again year, but you get the point here, right? You ought to be putting out players. And then if we take into account who has been putting out the most in the common draft era, right? 1967, 1969 becomes the NFL draft in 1970, and we can get into the minutia there, but the point here is there are only 3 teams that have had a player drafted in every single draft since the common draft era has begun, and those are USC, Florida, and Michigan, which is another way of saying, what are we doing here? We expect SC to be good. We expect Florida to be good. We expect Michigan to be good. So when they're not, it feels like a letdown. It feels like a disappointment. But you have lots of data to show if you pick one of those schools, you're probably going to get drafted. That's how the NFL thinks of this place. Also, measure this. The teams that have, or players that perform well against Ohio State, Alabama in particular, but Notre Dame as well, get drafted. Nobody had really heard about Rashawn Slater until Joel Klatt and I started talking about it at the watch party of college football, right? Or for the college football national championship. And the reason is they didn't really watch who was rolling up Chase Young when Northwestern played against Ohio State. It was that dude at right tackle. We're seeing dudes that were having success against Chase Young and some of the best edge rushers in the sport getting drafted highly. Off of that one game, off of that one piece of film, because guess what? They want the guy who played against the best guy and did his best work against the best guy, not necessarily the guy that has been consistently great. It's also a wild draft for a lot of reasons in that you saw some dudes that I thought had first-round grades just 2 years ago either fall in the draft, Sean Wade, or not get drafted at all. Stuart Brand, Cam Newton, Jamie Newman, no, he didn't get drafted. Marvin Wilson didn't get drafted either. I would have lost money on that, right? This is also a historically bad draft for defensive tackles. First time since 1998 that we didn't see at least 2 go in the first round. What I'm saying here is, if we are going to measure college football success, we have to measure it, A, by who wins championships, and B, what does the NFL say about your development? Because nobody's going up to Nick Saban and saying, hey, I don't think that kid is ready. First, he's the first person to tell you that. And second, he had 9 dudes drafted, and none of them were Dylan Moses, who I thought would have won a Butkus Award a couple of years and has had these non-football injuries of late. All to say, there is a road here, but there's also a non-traditional one, okay? The number 2 pick in this draft by the Jets is quarterback out of BYU by the name of Zach Wilson. Now, the interesting thing about BYU is it is traditionally a place where you are going to stay for all 4 years, and depending on how you count a mission trip, maybe longer. It's not uncommon for those dudes to be married with children playing college football. But Zach Wilson didn't even need to return for his senior year because he was that good. So if you demonstrate to NFL personnel that you are that good, at least in their eyes, no matter what I think, you will leave college to go play in the NFL because guess what? You're not going to do any better than the first round. And if you're a quarterback, you're probably not going to do any better than number 2 overall. What is left for Zach Wilson to do at BYU? What is left for him to develop? Plenty, actually, but not in the eyes of the NFL. So go get your money and go get paid, kiddos.